John, what can you share with us along this line as the markets are currently trying to balance COVID-19 vaccine concerns with other fundamentals?
Yeah, Terry, we need to get people up to speed with a tool, and it's called your internet. And you can start to track this, and you frankly should. You shouldn't be listening to news resources. You should go actually onto this website. So the HHS.gov, Health and Human Services.gov, and Operation Warp Speed. Just Google that into your computer and find the update on Operation Warp Speed for the next 6 months. This is going to teach you what the government's plan. This is run by the DoD and some pharma executives, and it's going to continue one way or the other for the next few months, regardless who wins the election. So Google Operation Warp Speed, Department of Health and Human Services. Find this page. That's where the updates are, and that shows you the strategy. That's the best thing I can tell you.
As our stock market is forward looking, John, what signal is it sending regarding the race for a vaccine? That race seems to be a key factor here. Some argue that our economy is recovering at a decent pace without a vaccine. Are you saying that a vaccine would increase the recovery rate here exponentially?
Exponential is way too strong a word because what will happen here is we'll have distribution to the frontline workers and the elderly first, and then it will come to the rest of us. So what it will mean is we will exit this period one way or the other by the end of next year. For 12 months from now, this is over, whether you have a different government or not, because most of these pharma companies, most of these vaccines are being collaborative efforts across international boundaries almost all the time. These pharma companies, either they're themselves global because they're multinationals, or they're working with different government agencies that are not U.S. based or getting funded by them, or university consortiums, or all three most likely. And that's what people got to make in mind. This is not about the U.S. The vaccine story is not about the U.S. other than we do have a lot of major multinational pharmas, and this Operation Warp Speed is our catalyst.
So what can be said about the approach to combat the virus that countries in general have taken? Because the trend of rising cases seems to vary from country to country, correct?
Well, basically, Terry, there was one way to short circuit this thing, and it's called rapid mass testing. It's nothing more than as soon as you heard in some town or community there were COVID cases, you tested everybody quickly and identified who had it. It's not that complicated. So if we have a 50,000 person town or even a 500,000 person town, if you have 50 cases, you just knock those people out and keep them in quarantine and move on. And that's what China did. That's what the South Koreans did. Other parts of the world did that got out of this without any big damage. The rest of us didn't get rapid mass testing in place.
The rising trend in cases continues long term. How soon before healthcare providers start to feel stressed? Any way to tell?
They're right now in many states stressed, Terry. We don't need to look forward now. We're going to be in the stress state for the next 3 months because the vaccines can't reach these areas until that period of time is up. So right now is when that's happening.
And what impact will that stress have on the economy?
Ooh, Terry, that's a big one, and it might be much larger than people think because the chaos that might emerge when healthcare systems really are at capacity and people really are being sent home and news agencies are really picking up on who's dying and who's suffering is something we haven't seen yet, and we're going to see it.
Let's take a look at the stock story here. There are a number of companies, as you have alluded to, with vaccines in testing in this race to come up with the one or the first one. For investors thinking about buying into some of them, given the race for the first vaccine, what specific challenges to stocks of those companies must investors be aware of?
Well, Terry, let's go through some of these names. I've got it pulled up here. Just for example, Moderna is kind of the classic one we hear about in the news, mRNA. This is the one that's being funded by Operation Warp Speed. Looking at a price of $67 a share, and we do have a number 2 rank on it. However, it's got a style score of F for value, a style score of F for growth. So what you're looking at here is a market cap of $26 billion on a company, $3 to $4 a vaccine vial. United States, might need 350 million of those. So you're looking at, a fraction of that market cap. So the struggle you have with a Moderna play is all the good news is priced in on Moderna, and you are not the first person to think about buying a vaccine company to make a play here. So just keep in mind, if you're thinking about this, you're not early to the game, you're late to the game, and you're probably going to get shorted on something like this.
And you've got some other stocks on your radar in this group. You've listed them in order of relevance. There are 5 this time that we're going to look at. Moderna, you've already mentioned, Gilead, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca.
Right. Gilead is one you probably hear a lot about. They have this remdesivir, which is not a vaccine, it's a treatment. So this stock, just to give you an example, I'm looking at a chart year to date on Gilead, and it was in April, $85 a share. Right now, I'm looking at a price of $57 a share and falling today in a bull market day. So Gilead is getting hammered because this is a classic example where there's new news about remdesivir not actually working as well as people think. And so the stock has been pulling back. But obviously, people knew that 6 months ago who were in the hedge fund business and have been shorting the stock. So again, don't be the first guy in on Gilead and don't pick the bottom. It looks like Gilead's going to get shorted for a while. Let's turn to Johnson & Johnson. Big name. Now, what's the problem here? Johnson & Johnson's a huge company, right? I mean, they've been making lots and lots of stuff. So this might actually be a very interesting entry point because you get $138 a share on this stock. This thing never sells off. It used to be $154 a share. I might be interested in Johnson & Johnson as a play right now. Buy the dip on Johnson & Johnson. AstraZeneca, big European UK company, ticker AZN. Again, this stock looking year to date, what do I see? The typical, run up and spike to about $60 a share in July. And now, lo and behold, it's been shorted for a long time, 3.5 months down to 52. So when are the shorts done with this stock? Honestly, people, I don't know. But again, probably don't want to pick off AstraZeneca as it's getting shorted because that stuff can go on way longer than you think. So my point here is stock investing in vaccine areas is buyer beware at this point in time. You're not going to probably get this right. However, as I picked up on J&J, if you did some work like we just did, you might find a buy the dip opportunity, and I think we have one here, which is J&J.
All right, our chief equity strategist and economist, John Blank, cracking the book. COVID-19 treatments and vaccines as that pertains to the economy. With John, I'm Terry Ruffalo, and for our listeners, we urge you to make sure to check out Zacks.com/promo for an interesting offer for your consideration.
This material is being provided for informational purposes only, and nothing herein constitutes investment, legal, accounting, or tax advice, or a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold a security. Do not act or rely upon the information and advice given in this podcast without seeking the services of competent and professional legal, tax, or accounting counsel. Publication and distribution of this podcast is not intended to create, and the information contained herein does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. No recommendation or advice is being given as to whether any investment or strategy is suitable for a particular investor. It should not be assumed that any investments in securities, companies, sectors, or markets identified and described were or will be profitable. All information is current as of the date herein and is subject to change without notice. Any views or opinions expressed may not reflect those of Zacks Investment Research as a whole.